But Antrim against Clare this weekend. I was reading an article on the Irish News. Ollie Baker, who's obviously a Clare man, and he was a selector with Antrim under Dinny Cahill, I think around 2011. He was saying Antrim, and I think this is a general point, Antrim should feel confident. They're going to treat this like a championship game where Clare are preparing for a championship. So those two different mindsets mean Antrim should be relishing this opportunity against the big boys. Now they're bringing them up to Corrigan Park, so it's going to be a fair old trek for those Clare players for a 1 p.m. throw-in. But like Darren Gleeson has obviously done pretty well because they won the Joe McDonagh Cup last year. They'll probably feel like they're on that upward curve. Came first in Division 2A last year. Neil McManus, who had a hamstring injury last year and was used as a sub in the McDonagh Cup finally, obviously wasn't right to start. He'll probably be back now as well. So it probably feels like everything's going well for Antrim.
Yeah, I always love how I was going through the fixtures for Down as well, and the games in Ballycran and these up in Corrigan Park, how they managed to be at 1 o'clock. It always amazes me that you have to travel further and yet the games are played earlier. But Antrim had a really good year last year. They beat Kerry in the McDonagh final by a couple of points and they beat them in the Division 2A final. They deserve to be up in the top division now. In fairness to Darren Gleeson, was involved as a coach for a year, came in as manager last year. I think Neil Peden has done massive work behind the scenes as well in the development of Antrim. There seems to be a very good buzz up there. I know from chatting to Darren a couple of times, he absolutely loves going up there. Says they're absolutely fanatical about it, and he's after getting a massive buy-in and has demanded a buy-in from the lads that are there. And I think crucially, as you said there, we're not just talking about Neil McManus now. We're talking about Conor McCann. We're talking about Keelan Malloy in midfield, lovely left-handed hurler. There's lots of names outside of those bigger names that we would have maybe just relied on. You look at the paper every Monday morning and you see Neil McManus 110, 9 frees or whatever it is. Whereas last year he was probably mostly due to injury, but he was only a bit part player, and I think that's huge in their development. No more than any other team, no more than Kilkenny's development. Like, they need to have other players chipping in outside of TJ Reid. They need to be able to rely on other players in his absence. And it's good that Antrim have got to that level now where they don't necessarily need their marquee names to be even there on a given day, and let alone shining on that day. So fair dues to Darren Gleeson. It's a fair spin from Portroe up to Corrigan Park and all these places. So that shows you how committed he is to the cause anyway, and he's kind of cutting out a nice niche for himself there. He'll obviously want to get back to Tip at some stage, and having worked under Sheedy even up there for a year now, he's manager now, and yeah, they'll like what's progress for them this year. Staying in Division 1 is definitely progress for them, and the group that they're in, potentially, if they beat Laois, they're probably not even going to be in a relegation playoff. So staying up in Division 1 is crucial for them this year, and they'll feel that they can based on everything they showed last year.
Yeah, they impressed me at times during that league final, or that Joe McDonagh final against Kerry. Finished 22 points to 117, and they probably didn't get flowing until later in the game, which I think is something that Darren Gleeson himself had said. And he said after the game, I was delighted that we dogged it out. I actually got great satisfaction out of that, which kind of suggests, I suppose that reflects the type of team that he's trying to build, that it's not just a fancy little hurling team, that it's a team that's going to be able for a rough day of it, which you're going to get plenty of that in the Liam McCarthy level because the teams are so physically big and strong. So that's something that I think, when I was looking at the shape of them in that McDonagh final last year, I was thinking they do look like they're a small step ahead of Kerry here. And like, you've people who can cover the ground like Keelan Malloy and Niall McKenna, who I thought was brilliant in that final. Conal Cunning couldn't even get into the starting team as well, and Neil McManus came on also. So that suggests that there's a great balance and strength to that squad. So I think they're probably in good shape coming into this season. Whereas Clare at the other side of
the big
things,
question, Shane, though, Shane, about Antrim is, how steep is this step up for them? And I know Donald kind of commented that he thinks they'll be lambs to the slaughter at this level. And, the timing of it was quite poor the evening after winning the Joe McDonagh. But it is a steep learning curve. And they're going to have to, produce a couple of big results. He had kind of said that if they take a couple of big beatings, it'll put them back a good bit. Like, what do you think yourself? How steep do you think that rise will be? And do you think that they can take the rise in their stride?
well, Laois have come in and Carlow in recent years. Like, They've had some tough days too, those teams. I mean, Laois were beaten comprehensively last year by Dublin, for example. But Antrim, they'll probably feel like they're in as good a position as any of the teams that have come up in the last couple of years to compete. Now, they've got a couple of games that are more winnable than, for example, we've mentioned with Westmeath in the other side of the league. So on their side, Antrim have got Laois, Dublin, Kilkenny, Wexford and start with Clare. There's probably going to be a heavy defeat or two in there somewhere. But on that side of the draw, it is far more winnable than games against Limerick, Waterford, Galway, Tip, Cork. I think they've got a better chance to acclimatise to this level, but it's not going to come without some tough days either. Lambs to the slaughter, that could prove to be right. You just don't know. Like if they end up getting a couple of injuries, all of a sudden, maybe things are looking a little bit light, you get in bad form, and maybe it becomes very difficult. But I think there's no reason to feel that they can't sort of start moving in this direction. But normally these things come with tough defeats. Then you move on to the championship and they're going to have Dublin in the first round. And you know, it's 10 years ago when they had, or is it 11 years ago, they had that famous win over Dublin in the championship. So again, I don't think Dublin are a team that they would necessarily fear if they came up against Kilkenny in the first round of the championship, or Galway or Wexford. Now Dublin can compete with all those teams, but whatever it is about it, Dublin aren't a team that are probably going to put 35 points in you the way those other teams are. So I think there's a chance of progress this year, a chance of winning anything. You know, that's not going to happen at those top tiers, but building, yeah, I think I can see that happening.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's a chance of progress, and like realistically, like the only way you're going to find out is to go up and test your mettle against these sides. Will they take a couple of defeats? Of course they will. But as you say, that championship game against Dublin, they will see that as an opportunity. They will definitely see that as an opportunity. Not facing with maybe, you know, a Wexford or a Kilkenny or a Galway. I think they'll see that as an opportunity, and I think that'll be in their back of the minds. They'll want to secure Division 1 status, and then all